Welcome to Tonal Temple. I'm Nite N. Thank you so much for joining me. We have an awesome guest this evening. I met her in passing. We both teach for the same fitness company. And that provides different, various training, HIIT training, Zumba, yoga, all that fun stuff to Blue LA Care and Blue Shield card holders. And we just hit it off right away. And she was speaking my language. And so she'll be on with us in just a second, talking about the doshas and how to eat accordingly as well. So feel free anytime you've got any questions to just chime on in, and we'll answer your questions live. So we'll be waiting for our girl. I hope everything is great. I took a dosha quiz last year, and it said I was tridoshic, and I don't know necessarily what that is, but I need to take another test. And she also provided us with a quiz too. The quiz is in a link. My bell. So yeah, Miss Angela Romero. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you? Thank you so much for joining me. Oh, you look great. Good light. Nice. Everything looks good. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm so excited to share the word of Ayurveda in hopes that it helps others. Just disclaimer, I have a 18-month-old and she's in the bathtub, so
Of course.
I'm hoping that she's not
do what
too
you
loud
gotta
right
do.
now.
Do what you gotta do.
All right. So do you just want me to go right into it, or do you
Sure,
want to?
yeah.
All right. So, well, I don't know if you introduced me or anything, but my name is Angela, and I'm an Ayurvedic and holistic health coach. So my aim is basically to help boss moms and badass businesswomen reduce stress in their everyday life and show them that there's a way to truly live free, like to not feel that burden of all of the expectations of everybody on us, and to allow ourselves to give ourselves time and to allow ourselves to accept our life in general and what we've become, because when we're young we've got these expectations and things. And I myself dealt with a lot of these things, including depression, anxiety, and irritability or anger a lot of the time, and I didn't know what was causing it or how it came about. And so I went on this mission, and as women, we're always like, I'm too fluffy, or we were always trying to find the next big thing. And so I went to school to integrative nutrition, and it still wasn't enough. I needed to know more. So I went out and I learned a little bit about Ayurveda, which inspired me. So I went to school, and I'm so overwhelmed with how Ayurveda has changed not just my life, but the life of my kids and my husband and my family and my friends and my community. So I just am very excited to share it. So let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
I'll try to keep this as brief as possible, but also as very informative as possible.
Definitely.
I'm like too close to my table, so
I got my notepad just in case.
I need to be able to move right here. I like my space. So
yeah.
All right. So Ayurveda simply is two words put together. So Ayur means life, and Veda means knowledge or the science. So it's basically the science of life or the knowledge of life. And I find it funny because we always say, oh, there's no book for life, or there's no book, you just got to figure it out as you go, or based off other people's errors. But that's basically what Ayurveda is. I mean, there's an answer for everything. Every single little thing you've got a bump, it tells you what it's from and how to cure it. So that's what Ayurveda stands for. It's a 5,000-year-old holistic health practice from India. And about 5,000-6,000 years ago, what had happened is there was another pandemic. There was a lot of things happening, and the sages or great meditators, they were wondering, there has to be a cure. Like, what is going on? So they studied animals, first of all. So what animals did eat and didn't eat when they were sick, and what gave them more energy, and just kind of animal patterns. And that's what helped them with this science. But also in the act of meditating, the word came to them. And so from the higher, they enlightened them, and from the higher power, and it showed them basically what, how to live an amazing life, and how to, so the aim of Ayurveda, so I don't get off track,
Sure,
is to prevent disease. So to keep the healthy, and to rid disease from the sick. So disease, which is funny also, is I never realized it's just a dis-ease.
Yeah.
So we're out of ease, you know?
Right.
I never put the two together. When you break words apart, like the Latin context of so many words is so like, whoa, like
Right.
mind opening. So that is the aim of Ayurveda. And once they got this knowledge, they actually didn't write it down in books. They used to say it, they used to talk in Sanskrit, and Sanskrit is basically hymns or like poems or songs. So they would say it, tell stories. So through these stories, that's how the knowledge got passed from generation to generation to generation. And but they said as time evolved, people became too stupid. Or we were too sidetracked with stuff, and we weren't able to retain the knowledge anymore. So they actually had to put the knowledge down into books, and the books all got burned and what have you. So we're bringing Ayurveda back to life, and I love that. I'm so excited to be one of those that's just going out and sharing it with everybody. And you're a yoga instructor, correct?
Yes.
So you share Ayurveda as well inadvertently, because they are sister sciences with one another, and they go along hand in hand with each other. So it's so beautiful. And it's kind of sad how in the 70s yoga came and Ayurveda came as well, but yoga took off and Ayurveda just kind of got stuck in the background because people weren't sure what it was, you know, oh, eating all holistic or natural, or who were these voodoo
right. Yeah.
So but now it's being more accepted as people are trying to go organic and live an all natural lifestyle. Like we're trying to go back to our roots, which is so a thing of what's going on with this pandemic right now. It's forcing people to kind of reflect upon themselves and their life and figure out their roots and what they're really here for, and you know what the meaning is and stuff. So Ayurveda can definitely help with that. But the beginning, so that's kind of like the base ground. But back when it started, there was space. So we had space, and then there was the sun and the moon, and between the sun and the moon, they created energy. And between the energy created the conscious intelligence, which created our ego. And that created movement, which created the molecules and everything. And that's how everything pretty much slowly got created. And we base everything off of the Pancha Mahabhutas. So Pancha means 5, and Mahabhutas, that's the elements. So the 5 elements within Ayurveda, there's space or ether, then there's air or wind, and then there's fire or heat, and then there's water, and then there's earth. So within the 5 elements, we break it down, and they're connected together. So to create doshas, and doshas are basically our energies of what we as human beings are, and everything, not just us humans, but like our phones, anything in this planet or this universe basically has every single one of the 5 elements in it, including the food you eat. Even water, if you think water gets hot and cold, and it can become solidified. So everything has one of all of the elements within it. But it's just a difference of some elements contain more or less of those elements. So I'm, for example, I'm a Vata person, and a Vata person is a person of space and air. So a Vata person has lots of rapid thoughts, and we get anxiety, and we can't make up our mind, and we're always like, oh, I don't know, and we just talking. So like if I'm in a party, I'm bouncing all over to everybody, you know, and I just, I'm everywhere. So that's a Vata person, and they're prone to get anxiety. Then there's the Pitta person, and the Pitta person is made of fire and water. So the Pitta person at a party, a Pitta person knows exactly what they want. They're very direct, they're very organized, very structured, they're very clear and crisp and pristine mind, and they're structured. So when things can annoy a Pitta person because they can't understand why a Vata person can't make up their mind, and they can't understand, you know, why the Kapha person haven't got there, but why they're lazy, which they're not all lazy, but they don't really understand why people aren't like them, you know. And then there's the Kapha person, and the Kapha person is mostly made up of earth and water. So if you think about earth, it's very grounding, and so it's grounding and it's comforting and it's warm. So a Kapha person is more prone to depression, but the Kapha person is also the lover. So they're the one at the party who doesn't really move around, but they'll sit in the corner or wherever they're at. They'll stay in one place, and people kind of come to the kapha person and they listen. And they listen to whatever it is that you have to say. And they just, the thing with kapha people is they're prone to depression because they absorb. They're absorbing everybody's energies and taking it in, taking it in, taking it in, and then they soak it. And then they just sit there and or something traumatic happens in a kapha person's life, again, they're going to absorb it. And we know that when you're mad at someone or when you have something fresh bothering you, you need to get it out, whether you're talking to somebody or whether you have to scream or cry or dance or move or whatever you have to do. You need to get that energy out from inside of you so you don't cause an imbalance. And when they don't, or when somebody doesn't force them to, that's when they become depression sets in and they really just don't want to do anything. So please stop me if you have questions along the way, because you might help me too.
Yeah, no, well, it's so crazy because it's so loaded. I had briefly in the intro had said I took a dosha quiz last year, and I took one before that, but I don't remember how it was. And last year, I think it came out like tridoshic, and I tried a couple of them. But it's funny, I didn't really know, because somebody gave me another kind of verbal breakdown of it. And so I remember thinking Vata, for example, I go, well, I don't really relate to that because I don't. And then reading up on it a little bit, again, I don't know really what, but I was reading up, and it's just so loaded, put it that way. It's like really deep too, like how each of them where then I was like, oh, I am kind of a little Vata, and I am kind of like, I get it. I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, it's so loaded.
Yeah, definitely. At first, it's very overwhelming. I mean, my husband too, he'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, what is going on? You know, like, and then when I break it down and I explain to him, over the course of this past year, I would break it down a little bit as he's willing and open, because, you know, you can't force any knowledge or content upon anybody unless they're open to receiving it. Absolutely. And as he was open, I would slip it in. And now it's changed his life, because he would always get heartburn or acid reflux. So that's a pitta person. They're more prone to acid reflux and heartburn and things like that. And he didn't understand, like he knew like tomatoes and stuff, but now he really understands, oh, because I'm pitta, you know, maybe I could have fennel afterwards if he eats whatever he shouldn't be eating to calm or cool him, you know, cool it. So he knows what type of spices to cook with when it comes to his particular dosha. So, and when you learn Ayurveda, it is very overwhelming. But at the same time, like once you like comprehend it, or when you see it, it's like the whole, I mean, I always wondered about the universe, and I'm a believer in God, and I believe in Jesus Christ, and I believe in everything. And I believe in that. But when I still had questions. Right. And to me, when I learned this, it just opened up my mind, and I was like, wow, that makes so much sense. You know, I'm 40 years old and I'm just realizing this is amazing. So that's as far as the Pancha Mahabhutas. So if you think about the qualities, I just want to look at my notes. I took a couple notes here. So when we go into the back, let's go back a little bit, back to the ego and back to things like that. So there's different mindsets that go along with these as well. So there's Sattvic, Rajas, and Tamas. So these are three different mindsets that we all have. But depending upon what we consume, whether or intaking into our mouth or our elements, but mostly our food and our drink, can affect our mind. So if we eat a lot of fiery foods and spicy stuff, or processed foods or fried foods, that can make our mind really rajasic. And that means that we're going to be angry or annoyed or easily frustrated. We're just easily, like, we don't have that calming effect because we're on fire. Like, picture a fire, it's raging, you know? So it kind of makes your body that way, which makes your mind that way. So that's called rajasic mind. And then there's a tamas mind. So a tamas mind is when you eat more earth type of foods, or I'll say a lot of sweets or heavy foods. So, you know, you eat like Thanksgiving dinner or parties and you're like, oh, and you're just so tired and you just want to sleep, right? Right. So that's a tamasic mind. It makes you just very lethargic and like kind of, that's a depressed type of person. You just eat. So it makes you very, your mind doesn't really want to think. It's just kind of blah. And then there's the sattvic mind. And this one, I'm sure you've heard of that before, being a yogi. The sattvic mind is what many yogis strive for. That is their they're constantly striving to be perfectly sattvic, which is awesome, by the way. But mostly sattvic people, you're eating all organic and from the earth. So you're vegan, you're not consuming any animals, anything like that. Because if you think about an animal, it's not that they're not consuming animal just for the purpose that it's an animal. It's more of what the animal's meat is doing to your body for the post effect after you're digesting it or when you're digesting it. Like if you picture a cow, it's very big and it's, you know, they can fight and they're aggressive, or so that those things are having effect on our mind, you know. So that's a lot of things that goes into it there. Or like cheese, think about cheese, how it affects your mind. It makes you very heavy and sluggish. But when you eat a salad, which Ayurveda doesn't promote cold raw salads either, by the way, but when you eat raw foods, I'll just put it that way, your mind, you can leave the table full but fulfilled, if that makes sense, with energy and full of life, and you feel good and you can kind of think more clearly and you can get more stuff done because of what you chose to put in your mouth. You know, as long as we're not giving in to the easy way of lifestyle and things like that. So that's kind of what Ayurveda goes along with. So let me go into what the dosha, a little bit more about the doshas, and what we should consume or be eating as per what we are. So everybody has all three doshas. And when at the time of conception, when we became a zygote, when our mom and our dad actually, when they collaborated and boom, there we are, whatever their energy was at that moment, either of them, when they collaborated, that creates our energy or a constitution, or in Ayurveda we call it prakriti, for life. That is what you are, and you cannot change it. However, you can bring that back into a balance, and you can find the balance, and so that way you can live truly feeling free and feeling happy and not feeling depressed or feeling stressed or feeling, you know, angry at everybody or what have you. So that's what the aim of Ayurveda is. We just help to show you how to bring whatever your out of whack balance back into balance. So that's a prakriti, is whatever we are when we got conceived. But as we age and as we grow, depending on our elements, our environments, and what is put into our mouth, which, as we know, in America, it's a standard American diet, we are all messing with ourselves very much without knowing it. So and as we age, it changes. Our prakriti, or our constitution, changes. And as it changes, that's when we become really out of balance. And that is called a vrikriti. So vrikriti is an out of balance dosha. So like, for example, I'm a vata pitta, but I have a kapha imbalance. Because I'm a mom and I'm a woman and I'm 40, so I've got a lot of excess weight sticking around on me, and I'm not finding it as easy to get rid of as normal. So these are, hi Ashley, I just saw my friend join.
Oh, nice.
So it's not as easy to get away as it used to be once was. Even though I still eat very much so Ayurvedic, but again, I have a Mexican husband who loves to eat Mexican food. Like tonight we had fajitas with corn tortillas, you know? So, I mean, it's still a process, and that's the other thing with Ayurveda. It's not this or that. It's an lifelong process, and you're constantly just taking in little tidbits. I mean, just like a yoga practice, or just like anything that we do, it's a practice that we're doing for life and that we're learning. So, and we just slowly implement it. You know, they say it takes 21 days to implement a new habit. So you try the first time and then say it doesn't work. And you're like, okay, well, let me try it again, or add little tidbits here and there until they slowly stick and it just becomes a part of your daily life. So for example, let's go into food now. So in Ayurveda, we say cold drinks. Everybody loves cold drinks, right? We love ice, that nice ice cold water. But if you think about your stomach, so everything basically, they say your gut is your brain. You know, your gut and the brain, it has that connection. So if our gut is connected to our brain and we're constantly putting in cold things into our mouth that go into our stomach, we're constantly putting out what's called agni. Agni is a fire inside of our digestion. So if we want to digest food properly and assimilate it into our tissues and, you know, like help our immune system and help our mind, then we need to keep our agni or our digestive fire always burning. So if you're constantly smudging the fire out by putting cold water in it, your body has to rework to like relight that fire. They're constantly re-putting wood in there and rekindling it. So that's why if you look at like Eastern modalities, Chinese, Indians, things like that, they mostly always have a cup of tea or just hot water and lemon. I mean, these are super, very simple tactics that everybody could and should be doing. And at first I was like, oh, hell no. Like, cause I had my big jug filled with ice every day. And I'm like, there's no way I could do that. Well, now there's no way I can go back to a big cold jug. I carry my big jug still, but it's filled with hot water. Yeah. Every day. And so the hot water also helps to, if you think about cold, think about when you're in the mountains and it's cold, like you get frigid and it gets down to your bones and it just hurts. So, but if you're warm and soothing, if you're sick and you drink a warm cup of soup, it's soothing. So it's doing the same thing inside of your body. It's either putting you in like almost like fight or flight mode, not to be so dramatic, but just in context a little bit. So at the same sense, that's why Ayurveda says, going back to the salad theory, we don't necessarily promote raw foods. We promote cooked or slightly cooked foods. So a carrot, you would more so want to cook a carrot. So that way your body, when you're eating the food and you're consuming it into your stomach, it's already partially cooked. So your body doesn't have to cook it. Then it doesn't have to cook it and then digest it and then assimilate it. So we want to do three things. We want to ingest, digest, and assimilate everything we take. But what's happening most of the time is people are ingesting, they're not digesting or assimilating. So we're basically not getting any nutrients from any of the stuff that we're intaking. And as we know, on average, people aren't ingesting the right foods anyways. But when you do try, it doesn't really assimilate. So that's why we say warm cooked foods. And we promote a lot of, if you look at an Indian meal, you'll see things like basmati rice and a mung bean. So they say the bigger the bean, the more air it holds. So, and more air, I mean, it's going to cause bloating in your stomachs. It causes obviously gas, things like that. So the smaller the bean, the mung bean is very small. It's still very good, and it's easy for the body to digest. They do a lot of cleanses with the mung bean and basmati rice. So basmati rice is also the one in particular that's really good and healthy for everybody to eat on an every single day basis. Okay, so there's that types of foods. I could go on forever, girl. You need to like keep a time and tell me when it's up.
Yeah, no, I love food.
I have so much knowledge.
Well, it's crazy. Kind of going back to like when I was like, oh yeah, like Ayurveda is kind of overwhelming, and then you were kind of saying too, it's it's this thing that we implement every day. So I think like yoga and like anything, it's a lifestyle. It's a whole journey of figuring it out, I guess. Because like the food I cook with all kinds of spices and stuff, and I don't ever think in terms of that, but I'm like, I've been trying to be a lot more mindful with this is right on time for me, the dosha thing, because we were talking about this again and we've got brought up again, and so it's interesting. I like it. You keep talking there.
It's so interesting because it's also funny because you said this, you cook with spices,
Yeah.
Well, I had spices in my kitchen forever and I had no clue what they were even for, like cumin and coriander. Right. My favorite one is coriander. I love coriander. It's so good, So there's so many spices that I use every single day. I mean, I've had ginger in the past and things, but I didn't know what they were doing. I just knew, like books said, it was, I mean, I read so many books, health books, but the more I read, you know, there's so much conflicting information out there. It's hard to believe, like, or it's hard to know, who do I believe? Do I believe this girl? Do I believe that guy? Like, what's the right thing? So when it came to Ayurveda and it says it's a 5,000 or 6,000 year old practice that's proven, then it's evidence based. How am I going to not believe that? And it just makes so much sense when it all. So even as far, we go back to the Vata Pitta Kapha, you know, the Vata, the person, how you bring the Vata back down to earth is you give them warming foods. You don't want to give a Vata things like popcorn or something like that, because if you look at popcorn, it's light and it's airy.
Bouncing off the walls.
Yeah, you're just going to add that. And it sucks because all these things that like a Vata is not supposed to have, I'm like, oh my God, those were my favorite foods.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just slowly like change them up, or like you learn to cook differently, you know, so you use different salts, or like black pepper, for example, instead of using the black pepper shaker, you use fresh cracked black pepper. That's something that everybody should use. And fresh cracked black pepper is amazing for your lungs. It's amazing for your digestion. It's awesome. Ginger is amazing for digestion. If you were to slice up ginger in like before every meal and squeeze lemon or lime on it, and then put a little salt and just kind of let it simmer and let it sit. You know, the same with radishes, how Mexicans, we put the radishes. It's the same idea. And when you start to learn these ideas, you're like, that's why they always do it. There's actually a science, but a reason behind the madness, because it helps you digest the food. It helps you prevent from getting bloated. It helps prevent from getting the acid reflux. It helps aid in digestion. So a thing that would bring a kapha person out of being over kapha they would want to eat more lighter foods and more things to rid them. So they would want to steer clear from bananas. Like if you're overweight, you don't want to eat a banana in the morning, and you don't want to have oatmeal in the morning, which I loved oatmeal too. But if you look at oatmeal, it's very gluttonous and heavy and thick. And so a lot of times you can look at a food and say, okay, do I want my body to look like this, or do I want my mind to think like that?
Right.
Even where the food is it grown in the earth, or is it grown in a tree? You know, these things all have where their elements or where they're grown makes a difference in how it affects your mind and your body. So that it's definitely amazing.
Would you say, like at different times of your life, we're probably one or the other of the doshas? Because I feel like it's funny the tridoshic thing, but like I don't even think that, like I wouldn't know if that's like, I'm gonna take this quiz again, because the more I've been kind of like listening, I'm so convinced that I had a vata time in life. Like a period of time. It's like a very pitta, because I'm definitely very kapha. Like I am just by nature. I'm a Pisces too, but I do walk that line of being like chill to lazy sometimes, but then I have this opposite fire under my ass that can't calm down. Like it's I'm definitely a ball of, you know, confusion, I guess.
Yeah. So if you were to keep a journal, you would definitely start to assimilate what's happening when. A journal based off of maybe even like I had fried food, I ate out, or I ate healthy, and you'll see it like a day or two later, like how you feel, have so much more energy, or how you feel lethargic, or how you feel irritated or aggravated or depressed or whatever. It all makes a difference. Or even as your relationships make a huge difference, or your career, or, you know, where areas in your life. I went to IIN, Institute of Integrated Nutrition, and we talk about the circle of life. And so you find where your imbalances are within the life, and that's kind of how areas you want to focus in. But back to Ayurveda, it's the same type of thing. So if you look at these areas in life where you're having an imbalance, and you kind of focus on that area to make it a little bit better, it'll fulfill the circle and make everything much more full and everything more clear. But back to your question. Yes. So if you look at a kid, little children, babies, kids, they get colds, and they always got runny noses, and they're always like, and they're always like, ew, get that kid away from me, you know, unless it's your own kid and you're like, oh, come here, no big deal. But other kids, you're like, oh my gosh. It's just who we are. But anyway, so that's a kapha person. A kapha person, if in your body, kapha is your chest area, coughing. So you get a lot of phlegm and mucus up in your chest. So that's a childhood is more a kapha time or age of life. And then as you age and come into adulthood, that would be more pitta. Just in general, no matter what you are, but every adult is like a pitta time of life. That's because we're getting jobs, we're getting up, we're keeping our consistent schedule, and we have to keep moving every day, and we've got more energy. And so that's our pitta time of life. And then as we age even past that, and we start to retire and things, it becomes more vata time of life. And if you look at an elderly person, their skin is more dry, it's wrinkly. So they don't have the kapha, they don't have so much water and earth in them anymore. Their bones become brittle because they're getting more air in them. And so that's the vata, and then they start to lose their mind a little bit. So they definitely become more vata in the later half of our life. Now, that's not to say that through our life, sometimes depending on our experiences and our food and our diet and whatever we're happening in that point of our life, that chapter, it could be more vata, pitta, or kapha for sure, because I've definitely experienced deep, dark times in my life that were, for sure, looking back, I'm like, oh, that was such a kapha time of my life.
Right.
So
easy. That's awesome.
But let me think. Let me go back into let me look at what is going on here.
Oh, and we have a question.
I love questions.
From a lovely lady, Miss Christina. I know her from yoga. She's so great. When you get a chance, could you please explain how you handle this change in lifestyle when you have kids?
Yeah, totally. I can relate to that 1000%. I have 3 kids. I have a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 19-month-old. And I've been married for 12 years. So we know when we're married, we have to give and take things, and you have to, pick and choose your battles and things like that. So that's definitely a challenge in itself. But then when it comes to kids, yeah, your kids don't want to eat. My kids don't want to eat all the Ayurvedic type of foods. They don't want to eat basmati rice and mung beans and cooked vegetables all the time. And in fact, they want my husband. Not joking. They literally would rather have my husband cook because they think I'm just going to cook only healthy foods.
Right.
But when I do cook American style, but I add a lot of Eastern modalities into there. Like I make sure to add more spices, or I'll add turmeric. I slip things in that they just don't even know about. Right. And then my baby, she has turmeric, and she even has dried ginger. She has nutmeg, and I put in her bottle at night nutmeg, cinnamon, and turmeric. Oh, and ghee in her bottle every night, because it helps her sleep. It helps her brain grow. It nourishes her bones, it nourishes her tissues. So that's kind of what I do for my kids. And then if they get sick, for example, I know different remedies. Like you can mix cinnamon and turmeric on with honey, and they could eat it off of the spoon, and they're like, oh, okay, well, this is good. Right. So little tips and tricks. There's little tricks, and you have to slowly break it in on them too.
Yeah, trick them.
Yeah. But I had a question for we call him Vaidya. It means doctor. So I had a question one time. I said, so okay, this is great, all that we're learning, but how do I have a family, and we're all different doshas. My husband pitta, I'm vata, and whatever. How do I cook for a family if we're all different doshas? Right. So what it comes down to and how you do it is you cook basically everything plain, like you would cook the meat or the vegetables or whatever you're cooking. Maybe you're making a soup or what have you. And each person has their own set of spices. And the spices is what helps them to assimilate and digest the food properly, so that way they don't get indigestion, or so that way they don't get the irritability, or so they don't get the bloating or what have you, as far as that goes.
Right. So kind of get everybody's spices together, like just pre-organizing it a little bit.
That's what I did. That's what I did is I just went on, well, I know them, but you can go on like Pinterest or what have you, or Google it, and, you know, how to make a vata spice, or I could share it. I mean, but I would be too much right now off the top of my head. But yeah, I mixed them up and I put them in like little spice jars. So I'm like, okay, this one's mine. And then I have a general seasoning. So I'll just it's kind of a tri-doshic seasoning for everybody.
Right.
And then we each have our own individual ones to help balance out our imbalance or bring us back into balance. I want to talk about ghee really quick because I don't know if a lot of people know about ghee. So ghee is nothing other than clarified butter, basically. And in Ayurveda, when you learn more about it, or if you go to an Ayurvedic health coach, counselor, or a doctor, they'll recommend ghee. And ghee is just the healthiest fat. So ghee is butter minus the water and minus any liquid. So it's just the pure, healthy, golden, beautiful fat. A healthy fat. So the healthy fat helps you to, when you have that fat, it helps you to bring in, assimilate all the nutrients from, or the properties of spices. Like turmeric, for example. If you have turmeric, ghee enhances turmeric like 2,000%, the percentage of it. Yeah, so if you have that in the morning, especially in a time like right now when you're trying to boost your immune system, you want to have turmeric, of course, but you want to have it with ghee because it enhances the property and it helps to assimilate into your tissues better by pulling it. They call it an anupana or a carrier. So ghee is a carrier of the medicinal properties of that.
That's cool.
So that's why we talk about ghee a lot. Let me think, like, obviously you guys know, don't have table salt. A little trick, so trick for us women and trick for, I don't know if I'll leave off on this one, but this is a really good trick. CCFT, you might hear about it. It's cumin, coriander, and fennel tea. You might all have it in your pantry right now. So all you would do is you could just take cumin, coriander, and fennel, whether it's a whole spice or the powder or what have you. If it's a powder, you want to put it in a tea bag. But you can take the whole spice and brew it on a pot in the morning and then put it in, like you could put it in one of these or a thermos and just drink it throughout the day. So that's going to help keep your acne hot, your acne going, so your digestive fire going. It's going to help you reduce bloating. It's going to help reduce inflammation. It's going to help your mind stay a little bit more calmer so that we could think better and have clearer thoughts and make better reactions to things that are happening around you that are out of your control. So these are just that's just a super simple something that one of the very first things that I learned that was easy to implement. Nice. So I don't want to overwhelm with too many things because I could go on and on and on. But if you guys have questions, I would love to answer questions versus just rambling about.
Right. Yeah. At any time, feel free to ask any questions. And also, I know you're still talking, but don't leave without saying where we can find you and all that other fun stuff too. And just as a heads up, we're talking about the doshas, and I got a fun little dosha quiz in my bio, and I think Angela's got one as well, just as a heads up if anybody just dropped in.
Yeah, so on the dosha quiz, when you do it, you should be able to get a link to download that'll give you a diet that's particular for your dosha in particular. So it's free, you just download it, or it goes right to your email. So yeah, that's what we're talking about, the doshas. I want to try to think about anything else. Oh, working out. Okay, so let's talk about our physical fitness. So vata person, not all types of doshas can do the same type of workout, which I was like, what? So a vata person, if our mind is already racing, it's already going so fast, to do something like a high intensity interval training is just gonna like ramp up our brain to we're gonna leave there like, you know, like, crazy. So vata type person needs something like yoga, or they need something like Pilates, or they need just, I know I've got little bugs too. Or they need to just go on a walk outdoors and just hike, you know, just be one back with nature. So that's what a vata needs to, they're in the air. We're all over the place. So we need to bring ourselves back to the earth and just calm down, like literally maybe just lay on the ground. And a vata person, when they're working out, they want to only work out till they feel a sweat on their brow. You don't want to overexert yourself, because as women, we're like, oh, that's it, summer's coming. I'm gonna work out, and I'm gonna work out hard. You know, it's like 2 weeks, you just go gangbusters, and then you're like, oh, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
So, and then the Pitta person, same thing. The Pitta person should not be doing a spin class or something like that because they're already so hot. So they need to do more cooling things. Again, same like with the yoga and Pilates and calming things. Whereas the Kapha person, they do need to amp up their heart rate and they do need to push themselves. But if you think about a Kapha person, it's very hard for them they're not motivated to do that.
Right.
You know, the Pitta person's like, yep, I'm getting done. I'm going to show up early. I'm going to leave on time. You know, I got my bag. They're like so prepared.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Kapha person's going to like roll in their sweatpants and be like, I don't want to do this. I don't know why you're forcing me to do this. Yeah. But on the flip side, the Kapha person, if you force them to go to something or force them to do something like running or walking or whatever that is, right. they're slow rolling, but then they keep going.
Yeah.
They keep on going. And the Pitta person's going to stick to something like forever in their life. Right. And the Vata person's going to be like, oh my God, I tried this new Pilates class and it was so fun. And the next week they'll be like, I just did yoga. It was great. I actually love yoga. And the next week they're like, spin is the best thing ever. Yeah. You know, we're just seriously. Yeah. So when my husband, he tells me, he says, you know, you should inspire more kids. It's not my target market, but if kids only knew Ayurveda from a young age and how and understood that not everybody thinks like them. Right. And not everybody's on the same plane. If they understood that there was different minds and people were consumed with different things. I mean, we know as adults, we try to explain to our kids, well, you don't know what they're going through. Well, yeah, that's true. That is a fact. But also their brains don't work the same. Their makeup's not the same. So if you can understand the Vata, the Pitta, the Kapha, life becomes so much more better because you look around and you're like, oh, that person's so Vata right now, or oh, they're so Pitta, I'll just leave them alone. And you learn to kind of just be like calmer and more understanding of situations and of people and of things. And you don't act out or you don't become as irrational as maybe you once were, you know, or you don't get as irritable as you once did. Because like I said, I dealt with depression and I dealt with anxiety and I would be irritability for years, and I just didn't know how to deal with it. And my life has been dramatically changed because of my diet and my lifestyle and working out, but more importantly, because of the knowledge that I know and that I've gained, and especially more so and definitely that from Ayurveda. It's incredible. Awesome. But I guess I could leave it off on that note.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. This is so great and knowledgeable. I'm so lucky. I come across some very interesting people. I'm like, just come on, let's talk. Let's talk on that.
Yeah, no, dear, it's amazing that you're doing that. I think that's really great. And I think, I love it. I love that you're doing that. So there's all kinds of topics I could go on to. That was a brief overview kind of everything. And there's obviously lots of nuggets that are missing out of that. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on. My name on Instagram is Angela Ayurveda. And then I have 2 YouTube channels. Nice. There's Angela Ayurveda, but there's a brand new one that I'm starting. It's called Organic Stress Relief. So I just rebranding everything because that's who I focus on is my target market, and my people that I help are boss moms and badass businesswomen. Just help them relieve stress, rid anxiety, rid irritability, and just combat depression, and let them know that there's a way to fully live free and release that burden from them. So there's a way to do that. We're not stuck in this world alone. You know, we got so many hats that we're wearing, and sometimes we just have to put on one on ourselves.
Yes. Yes. One pretty one.
or a crown or whatever, our tiara, or whatever you want to wear. Just put that one on just you, and you're the only one at the party, and you just need to focus on just you.
I'm showing up in a top hat. Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. And dance. You can do whatever jig you want to do, you know? Whatever sets your soul on fire.
Yes. Thank you so much, Angela. Till next time, we'll keep in touch. Yes. And when we're not quarantining, we need to throw an event, do something.
Oh, I'm all game. I love it. Namaste. Thank you so much. I appreciate
Namaste.
it.
Have a good night.
Bye.